Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. Oh, I haven't done the that thing. It hasn't worked properly. Oh my goodness, it hasn't worked properly. Why has it not worked properly? There we go. Oh, and I don't have my camera. Oh my gosh, literally everything is completely disordered today. Bear with me. Okay, my camera should be about to boot up. Yay, there we go. Okay. All right, we are good. We're ready to go. All right, so officially this time, welcome to my voice modification workshop. We're currently streaming live on YouTube. So YouTube cannot see any of the Discord stuff, but they can hear you. So keep that in mind when you're asking questions and things. You can find the YouTube over at, I don't know why I haven't got the link there. I should have the link there, but, oh, I do. It is on the screen. But yeah, the YouTube is youtube.com/@transnetwork-12, because transnetwork was taken. So if you'd like to subscribe to there and follow us there, that's where the content is now going to start being. And the workshop will also be there, available for, I guess, forever. So yeah, you can have that if you want it. Anything else I need to talk about before we move forward? I don't think so. All right, on to the workshop. So firstly, the rules and etiquette for the workshop. I would ask that you all be respectful of the learning environment and be respectful of your peers and generally try to keep things on topic. What this essentially means is you can absolutely ask questions, but I don't necessarily need, a random shout out of like, oh, I can do that. Like, cool, okay, but we're teaching other people right now. Or like, I definitely don't need to know about what you're having for dinner right now. We can chat about that after a workshop if you want to. For the first section, it'll be more of like a lecture section with bits of audience participation where we'll go through the whole process of voice modification, whether that's feminization or masculinization or androgenization. So yeah, we'll be going through the entire process, and then right at the end of all of that, usually that's like an hour, hour and a half, depending on how we get forward. After all of that, there'll be an open forum section. So if you have questions, you'll be able to ask them that are related to anything that is voice. Or if you just want me to help you with your voice, wait till the end, and I'll absolutely be happy to do that. The workshop goes on indefinitely. We go through everybody until we've done everybody. I suppose hard out in about 4 hours if we somehow get that long, because I will be passing out by then. Okay then, right. So firstly, who am I? My name's Zara, pleased to meet you. I've been working on my own voice for about a year now. I think it was November of 2023 that I very first started. And that was literally just like watching trans voice lessons on YouTube. Since then, I've had my own vocal coach who's helped me. And I've spoken to many of the different vocal coaches across the different Discords that you're probably all in. So yeah, that's me. I'm an aspiring vocal coach, which means I'm not the real deal yet. But I'm hoping to be there one day. Part of me getting there is building experience, doing workshops for you guys. I also do free private one-on-one lessons over at my Discord. Again, that's me building experience. So yeah, I'm not like a proper professional yet. So if you hear me say something that contradicts with what another coach has told you, probably go with what the other coach says, simply because I am still learning. And I might make mistakes sometimes. So importantly, what I'm not, we've gone over, I'm not a professional voice tutor yet. The really important thing though is I'm not a medical professional. So I'm never ever going to be diagnosing you, and I cannot help you with anything medical. I can't give you medical advice. The most I could ever do is, hey, that sounds like something you should maybe speak to your doctor about. Or if I hear a sound that's like, that sounds like symptoms of a condition I'm familiar with, then I might recommend you go speak to a doctor about that. Again, that wouldn't be a diagnosis. That's just me saying, hey, maybe go speak to your doctor. And maybe your doctor will either say yes or say no. Yeah, that's really important. Do keep that in mind. Okay, so onto some voice things. We'll start off with just how do we maintain some basic vocal health. The most important thing is probably staying hydrated. That's why I asked all of you to drink a pint of water about an hour before the workshop started. The reasoning for it being so much earlier is because as we drink, imagine that there are sort of two holes to your throat. There is we'll call it the food hole. That's the pharynx. You have air going through there. You also have your food and water and your larynx. That's like, people call it the voice box sometimes. That's where sound is controlled. You'll hear people say, oh, like I swallowed it down the wrong hole. That wrong hole is literally the wrong hole. It's your larynx. So you start choking on it. Because of this, and because of all of our voice stuff being in the larynx, when we drink, we don't directly hydrate any of it. It goes through the pharynx instead. That means that you have to have water go through your entire system. You've got to digest, goes into the bloodstream, blood flow comes back to the vocal folds, hydrates the vocal folds. You have to go through that whole process before you're actually hydrating. So it's good to do it decently in advance so that you know you're in a nice position. Okay, I hope that makes sense. By all means, ask questions in the chats if that doesn't make sense or if anything's confusing. Do keep in mind, do keep in mind that I am in 3 different Discords as well as streaming to YouTube. So essentially I'm looking at 4 different chats. So if I miss you, I will try to come back to you. Yeah. Okie dokie. So staying hydrated, really important. It's also really good for us to be keeping nice and relaxed during any vocal stuff that you're doing. When you're relaxed, you're going to be avoiding strain. You're going to be avoiding just bad configurations that aren't good for your voice. We'll talk more about those in a second. So yeah, keeping relaxed. Talking shouldn't be like super difficult for you. When you talk in your unmodified voice, it's not super difficult for you. So there's no reason why your modified voice should be super difficult for you. We're not pushing to try and do something really like physically demanding. We're just very delicately adjusting the way we speak to produce a different sound. It's kind of like if you look at a guitarist, they don't have like bulging finger muscles. They just use their fingers in very precise ways. This is the same thing for your voice. We're not trying to build like a bulging throat or anything, or bulging throat muscles. We're not building muscle. We're just learning how to use those muscles in specific ways. Okay? Another useful thing, warm-ups. I was talking earlier about how we have to go through the whole system of drinking water, it going into the bloodstream rehydrating our vocal folds in order to actually hydrate anything. A really nice thing for this is doing vocal warm-ups. The idea behind a vocal warm-up is literally just we're increasing blood flow to the region and we're flexing out some of those muscles. By doing that, we're then hydrating them and we're doing any maintenance that is needed in the area at the time. So like if you have too much mucus in the area, then it's going to clear that out. Basically anything that is needed will be done via that increased blood flow. Okay. Lastly, the really important thing to do whenever you're doing any sort of vocal training is have fun with it. This isn't just, have fun with whatever you're doing. It actually really helps us. It helps us to stay relaxed and it helps us to not like tunnel focus into one specific thing. If you're just taking an exploratory nature to your voice, you're going to learn so much more and you're going to get just a faster learning experience. So absolutely have fun with it and play around with your voice. It is your new favourite toy and you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it through that. And you're going to learn really quickly. So important things to avoid. These initial few, they're things to avoid. They're not really a big deal. None of these are going to be a huge deal. But it's worth thinking about them sometimes. So spicy foods, the capsaicin within spicy food can irritate the vocal folds a little bit. Again, not a huge deal, but maybe don't have like a chili right before doing your voice workouts. Not really going to be the most useful thing. You might be coughing a bit and it's not going to be a super fun time. Caffeine also irritates the vocal folds a little bit while dehydrating you. I said earlier how hydration is really useful. So we don't want to be having, if you're having, 10 double espressos a day, you're probably going a little bit overboard. But just don't have a Red Bull right before doing your voice works. Don't have a double, triple espresso, whatever, right before doing your voice stuff. A warm tea can be quite good. That warm liquid can help to just get things moving a bit more. But yeah, don't be going for something super, super high in caffeine. Sugar, it's just a basic one, dehydrates you. We've covered hydration. Smoking and vaping, this is very obvious. It obviously damages the vocal tract. You all know that. This doesn't mean that smokers can't feminize or masculinize or androgynize their voices. Excuse me. This doesn't mean that they can't do it. However, it's going to make things a bit more difficult. I believe Savvy from Trans Academy or from Scientifically Augmented Voice, she, from what I remember, was a heavy smoker when she first started. And she still managed to feminize her voice with that being the case. So it is possible. It's just going to make things a bit more difficult. Does the temperature of liquid matter? I would say not so hot that it's going to burn you, obviously. And also cold drinks can make things a little bit tighter. I would avoid really cold stuff. But like an ordinary, like herbal tea, that could be really good. Yeah, nice herbal tea is a really good idea. But you can get similar effects by just doing a warm-up. Dairy is an interesting one. Dairy will promote mucus production in your vocal folds, or in your larynx, I should say, in your vocal tract. That's what I should be saying. It'll promote mucus production, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing. There is like an optimal level of mucus production you should have, and dairy will just make you produce more. So I suppose if you were like super low, then it would help. But if you're at like a normal level, you will just produce regardless. Generally, staying hydrated will help you maintain that mucus level. So staying hydrated is much better than drinking a load of dairy. Again, doesn't mean you have to cut dairy out of your life. Just don't have a bunch of dairy right before doing your vocal stuff. Okay, lastly, these ones are a bit more important and you should be thinking about them more. Any strain in your voice, any pain or discomfort or any tension. These are all sort of within a category. Essentially, your voice, as I was saying earlier, it shouldn't be difficult for you. It certainly shouldn't be painful for you. This is something you're going to be using all the time. So it should just be nice and relaxed. So any pain, strain, discomfort, tension, anything like that, one, it's not going to get you the sounds you want. Women and men don't sound in pain all the time. So it's not going to produce the sound you want. And you're at risk of doing some damage to yourself. If you're feeling pain, you're almost certainly doing some damage somewhere in the vocal tract. So lay off. This isn't permanent damage. You might just have to take the rest of the day off in terms of like voice stuff. Not necessarily a super huge deal. You'll just have to take some time off. If you were to repeatedly do it over and over and over again, then we can start doing some more significant damage. If you were to keep damaging and keep damaging and keep damaging over and over and over and over again, eventually you can form things like nodes around the vocal tract or nodules, which would then have to be surgically removed. I don't want to scare you with that. I've never heard of anybody actually having this happen to them. You would have to be intentionally doing the wrong thing constantly, and then bad stuff would happen. Just don't ignore pain. Pain means you're doing something wrong. Treat it as you're doing something wrong. Okay? Any questions on that before I continue? And you have to excuse You'll have to excuse me for my voice being a little bit all over the place. I'm a little bit disorganized right now. And I've also barely spoke today. I've been home alone all day. Okie dokie. All right. So let's move over to some breathing exercises. We're going to keep things nice and relaxed. So get yourself in a really comfy position. We were talking about earlier how being relaxed can be really good. So let's get super relaxed. Okay. All I want you to do is just breathe with me. Okay. So we're going to breathe in. Hold. And breathe out. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Nice and relaxed. So, moving forward to our first little thing. SOVTEs or SOVTs or semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. All this means is you have your vocal tract, so imagine down here in the throat, coming up over to your mouth and your nose. Okay, that is the vocal tract, stuff where the sound is. All right. So we want a semi-occlusion, a partial closure somewhere at the frontish. The idea being, as air comes up through the vocal tract, that's pressure on your vocal folds because of that, literally the air pressure. By having that partial block, we're balancing out that air pressure so that you can imagine we've got like those two equal forces opposing on the vocal folds or acting on the vocal folds. So because they are equal forces, they kind of cancel each other out, giving your vocal folds a nice and comfy position to just do their thing. We can stretch them out a little bit and they're going to be really, really comfy. So, a couple of ways we can do this. They're very, very simple. Apologies if you hear my dog barking in the background. So, we can start off with just a lip trill. Very simple. You're just doing like a sort of, imagine a horse neighing. Okay, or a horse sighing, I should say. That sort of. And then we hum through that. And then we just move that hum up and down, sliding around a pitch. And then the idea is essentially, imagine a pendulum swinging around. Okay? Pendulums will normally, they'll sort of start off high and then they'll swing until they slowly flicker out and run out of energy. I want you to do the opposite, like a reverse pendulum. Okay? So you'll start off with just a little wiggle in your pitch and slowly go further and further up and down in your pitch until eventually you reach the ends of your pitch range. Okay? I want you to keep this nice and relaxed. All right? So we'll start off with a lip trill and we'll do that pendulum thing. If you can't do a lip trill, if you struggle with that, you can do like a tongue trill, or you can just use like the sound for like a Z, zzz, or you could do, I heard people doing like an N, or like a ying, anything like that will do perfectly fine. And there's also straw phonations, I'll talk about those afterwards. So, we'll start off, and you can do this as well at home, if you want to be muted, and yeah, you can do your thing as well. And then a bit further. And then all the way to the ends. Hang on. And then at the ends there, we're going to do a little siren. So it sounds like this. And then going down. Okay, and that is a lip trill with sirens at the end. So I hope that's easy to understand. It's a pretty simple thing. It should be pretty easy to do. As I'm saying, it allows your vocal folds to just stretch out a little bit and yeah, help them get warmed up. So the last thing I'll talk about is the straw phonation. So I want you to imagine, or if you've got one, I suppose you can give it a go. I do have a straw. We can just do some. So it's the same concept as before, but this time, if I just drink a bit of water. All right. If you have a straw, grab a straw and grab ideally a bottle, but a glass I suppose would do. And we're going to be blowing bubbles into it. I want your straw to be about this deep. I think that's about maybe a bit less than an inch. But once the straw's in and you're blowing bubbles, you'll be able to get a feel for how deep it should be. It should be easy to blow the bubbles, but not so easy that there's no resistance, okay? If you're making a ton of mess, you're probably a bit too high. So a closed bottle like this is really good because there's going to be less mess. If you're using a glass, no matter what you do, there's going to be a bunch of mess because we're blowing bubbles. But the idea is literally dunk in, start blowing bubbles, and then hum through that doing your softie. And then just like we were doing before with our sirens and stuff and our reverse pendulum, just back and forth, going further and further each time, higher and lower, so you can give things a nice stretch. And yeah, water acts as a really, really nice thing to push against because it will always perfectly balance that force. So straw phonations are pretty much always going to be the absolute best thing to use. But obviously we don't always have a straw and a bottle available to us. If you're in the car, you probably can't do that. So a lip trill will absolutely suffice in that situation. In terms of how often you should do softies, I would say if you're brand new to voice work, try to do these several times a day. Try to do these several times a day. I would say, 3 times a day would probably do. But if you can be doing it like 4 or 5 times a day, that would be really, really, really good. It'll get you it'll build good habits in terms of reducing strain and things like that. And it'll also just help you generally to make sure you're in like a really nice and healthy place for starting your voice work. If you're brand new to voice, whether you're feminizing, androgenizing, masculizing, whatever, start off with your softies, do those several times a day for about a week before moving forward. Any questions about those before I move forward? Is there a reason you do lip trills instead of just going up and down with your voice like humming? Does it have to be some sort of benefit for warming up? So there's no benefit for warming up like your mouth and lips. The idea is we want that partial closure so that we have that force that's being pushed against Does that make sense? So when I'm doing a lip trill, the air from my lungs is going through the vocal folds and being pushed out of my mouth, but because it has to push against the lips, that's creating a force pushing back again. That makes sense? They're like hitting the lips, being pushed back again. It's only when that elastic pressure of my lips is overcome that they open and then close again. All right? So it's all about creating that back pressure. The reason we don't hum, I believe, is because we then don't have enough back pressure. Oh, sorry, we have too much. And also we're just sending all of it through the nose at that point. So a hum would have much less of a benefit because we have too much occlusion, essentially, is my understanding. I still need to read up on some studies on why humming specifically doesn't have as much of a benefit. But it doesn't. Oh, you asked that in Trans Academy. If you scroll up in Trans Academy, somebody literally just asked that exact same question, and the vocal coach Jessa just answered with a couple of studies. So if you were like wanting to super nerd on that, then that's how you'd super nerd. But the short answer is humming ain't going to do it quite right, because you need that extra airflow. Makes you push air harder without straining your vocal cords, kind of. It's not about pushing air harder. It's about having something pushing back again, so that those two forces on your vocal folds are balancing out more. Yeah? So you don't have like an upwards force pushing, because you've sort of negated it a little bit by that downwards force pushing back. Does that make sense? That way the vocal folds can do their thing, they can open and close with much less strain on them. Does that make sense? Okay, fab. All right, moving forward. So, we're going to move to our first gendered thing. Okay, this is vocal weight or perceptual weight. You might also hear something called quotient being referred to in some places, an open quotient versus a closed quotient. We'll go over all of that here. Essentially, vocal weight is the difference between this sound and this sound. You can hear one of them's much buzzier, one's much more intense. And that heavier one tends to be more in line with a more masculine voice. So if I move my voice back over to here, okay, I've got a much buzzier voice right now compared to what I just had. If I was to remove that buzziness, I'm going to sound more like this, where it's almost a little bit weaker. It's much softer, much more gentle. I can really dramatize it if I drop my resonance even more. So if I've got like a really dark resonance, you can really hear that extra buzziness. If I then take it away, I sound much dopier. It's much gentler, but it's also much dopier, much more hollow sounding. So this is what a very light vocal weight sounds like. Okay, this again, in a brighter resonance, is what a much lighter vocal weight sounds like compared to over here, which is a much heavier vocal weight. In terms of what this literally is, and this is where the terms open and closed quotient come in, you have your vocal folds. I suppose we'll just talk about how talking works, or making a sound. Air comes up through into your vocal tract from the lungs. That's then kind of like chopped up by your vocal folds, which open and close. The speed at which they open and close is going to control the pitch, the frequency. Literally the amount of, from like closed to open to closed, the amount of times you do that a second is pitch. So like if you see 200 hertz, that means in 1 second, the vocal folds open and closed 200 times. Okay? So that's what pitch is. Vocal weight is when they do that closed, open, closed, how long do they spend closed versus how long do they spend open? If they spend more time open, you'll have a more open quotient, you'll have a lighter voice. If it spends more time closed, you'll have a closed quotient, you'll have a heavier sound. Okay? Other words we can use is like buzzy versus soft, or intense versus gentle, rough, I guess, versus soft again. Yeah, but sounds, remember, are this kind of a sound versus this kind of a sound, okay?
Or this kind of a sound versus this kind of a sound.
Okay, that's what's going on. So, a little exercise so we can have a play with this, all right? I want you to imagine, okay? And when we're practicing any of this, by the way, I'll explain what the mechanism is in terms of, like, you know, we talked about the vocal folds there. I'll explain what those mechanisms are for those that want to know, but I don't want you focusing on that mechanism when you're trying to modify the sound of your voice. Only focus on the sound itself, okay? So all I want you to focus on in this exercise is how the sound changes. Don't worry about your vocal folds. All right? So I want you to imagine that you've got a little baby in your arms, okay? It's a very cute baby. We like this baby, okay? Very nice little baby. It's sleeping in your arms, okay? It's very, very lovely. And we're just going to gently coo and be like, ah. Or if I go over here, aw. Aw, very nice baby. Very, very nice. It's a very cute baby. Aw, very, very nice. Aw. Aw. Or if I'm in my brighter kind of a voice, ah. Ah, very cute. Ah. Now I want you to imagine, okay, that's going to be our lightweight. Now I want you to imagine that that baby has just thrown up on you, all over you. It's disgusting. Ah, ah, gross, baby. Or if I go over here, ah, ah, gross, baby. Ah, ah, gross. Ah. Okay? I want you to think about the difference between those two sounds. Ah, ah. Or if I go over here, ah, ah. Okay? One of them is much buzzier, it's much rougher, it's much heavier, okay? The other is much lighter, it's much gentler, it's much softer. Yeah? Does that make sense to all of you? Can you hear the difference in those two sounds? That ah and the ah, or ah, 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 oh, ah. You'll hear that there is a volume difference between the two. Make sure you're remembering though, while weight is tied to volume, it's not the same thing as volume. Things are going to sound louder when they are heavier. And also we tend to get heavier when we go louder. The reasoning for this is a very simple. Usually when we're using more vocal weight than we normally do, whether you're in a heavy posture or not, if you go even heavier, normally you're doing that because you want to like alarm people, okay? So if you were to think way back in nature days, okay, if a predator's coming, you're going to go like, ah, 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 and your weight is going to increase massively. The reason for that is so that everybody is like, oh, snap to attention, focus on that sound. You perceive that as being an important sound that you have to focus on, okay? So like cries are very heavy, shouts are usually quite heavy, screams are very heavy. All of those sorts of sounds that like alert you and alarm you, all our alarm noises use extra weight, okay? But also, a more masculine voice tends to be heavier than a more feminine voice. Does that make sense to everybody? I need to pop to the toilet. Think of any questions that you have while I'm at the toilet, okay? Hello, 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 hello. So, do we have any questions about vocal weight? I can see somebody's typing, so we'll wait for them to finish typing their question. Oh, another thing on vocal weight that I forgot to mention. As we go higher in pitch, it'll be easier for us to go higher in pitch if we have a lighter vocal weight. Also, we need an extra bit of vocal weight to go lower in pitch. So for example, if I start over here, I'm going to go heavy and low pitch up to light and higher pitch. And then I'm going to keep light while I go down in pitch. Listen to what happens when I do that. Did you hear how my sound broke up and stopped at a much higher pitch than where I started? Okay? The reasoning for that is you need that extra closure of that vocal folds. You need that more closed quotient in order to produce those lower pitches. I would need to do something like vocal fry in order to go any lower than that. Okay? For those of us using a pitch tracker, would vocal weight be represented as a sound difference in the peak and valleys of the sound? No. The peaks and valleys are amplitude, if I remember rightly. Yeah, that's going to show you volume. It's not going to show you vocal weight. I don't believe vocal weight is shown on a pitch tracker or on a spectrogram. So I'm afraid you do just have to listen for it. All of these things, though, spectrograms can be useful, but I would say, especially if you're an amateur, don't bother with them. I would much rather you hear the difference than try to track the difference using software. Generally, I'm going to say no, I won't say generally, I'm going to make a stronger statement. For everybody, I want you hearing the difference between the two sounds instead of using something else, some third party thing to tell you the difference, okay? Because if you can't hear the difference, it's going to be really difficult for you to then produce the difference, all right? And it's going to be really difficult for you to analyze your own voice. So even it can be useful to speak to somebody else and get feedback while you learn, but with the goal that eventually you won't need that, you will just know how those two sounds sound. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. Speaking of warm drinks, by the way, ginger and lemon tea, with honey as well. Tastes delicious and very good for your vocal tract. Okay, we'll move back for a moment. I would say if you are feminizing your voice, or if you are androgenizing from a masculine place, that is feminizing, you just stop sooner. Start with vocal weight. If you're, did I say it right? Feminizing people, start with vocal weight. Masculizing, that's going to come second, okay? The last little thing I'll say, we'll just go over some more exercises that you can try if a baby one doesn't work for you. There's like, I guess, an infinite amount you could try. But just to give you some examples, we can try like the ASMR, softly speaking kind of a thing. So if we're talking kind of like this is going to be a really, really light vocal weight, okay? This is kind of what that soft-spoken ASMR sound kind of sounds like. First, at the other end, we can imagine we're like a sports announcer, yeah? And it's like sports ball, yeah, strike, batter out, or whatever it is that sports announcers say, okay? Double lift is getting a triple kill. Oh my gosh, and they're going to go to Baron. There's some esports references for you. Yeah, that sort of sports announcer, that very intense, very excited, that kind of a thing, tends to have a much heavier vocal weight. So we can have those as like our two ends of a spectrum if you want something else to try practicing with. Lastly, specifically if you are feminizing, we can try using the yawn voice as a way for us to get over there. So you can imagine
I literally can't even think about this without yawning, like actually yawning, okay? But my own yawns are contagious to me and they make me yawn more. It's ridiculous. But yeah, if you yawn and then stick with this kind of a voice, you get that dopey voice. And my camera's just gone. You get that dopier voice. And this is that lighter kind of a weight, all right? It will increase your vocal tract size, which we'll cover next, but it will also lighten everything, okay?
We also now ended up with... Okay, there we go. The camera's actually gone. All right, I will be right back in just a second. All I need is a charger for my phone because my phone has already died. And my phone is my camera. So give me just a second to grab that. Okay, so we'll give that... Let me put that there. We'll give that just a couple of minutes to charge, and then I'll put the camera back on for you. I suppose if anybody new comes in during this time, let them know why there is no camera. You can just have a little kitty cat for now. Okay, so does everybody feel like they understand vocal weight now? In terms of your practicing, I would say again, once you've done your week of softies, start doing this. For feminizers, do this first. Start doing this several times a day to really build that like understanding of what this sounds like. I want you doing a lightweight and I want you doing a heavyweight. And I want you to compare and contrast the two and get a good understanding of those two ends. Eventually, I want you to be able to go, let's say if we're feminizing, so we'll be starting somewhere like here. I want you to be going from over here all the way over to here, and I want that to be something you can really easily slide between without it being much of a thing, okay? So, yeah. Or, you know, I suppose if you are, when you get to the point of vocal weight for our masculizers, I want you to be able to go from somewhere over here all the way over to somewhere over here, and this can be a really nice smooth thing that we just move back and forward between, and it can be really, really easy for us to do. Okay? Or like to the further extreme, we could literally just go like or okay? That is good vocal weight control. All right? Okay, moving onwards. So, size and resonance. This is the fun one. Okay? All right, so your vocal tract, we talked about it earlier. It's essentially from the trachea all the way to the nose and mouth. All right? Now, you can imagine that as literally just like a space. Okay? Whenever we have a space, whenever we have air or a sound moving through a chamber like that, that chamber, the size and the shape of it are going to affect the sound. And I have a really good way of demonstrating that I need the camera for. So hopefully this doesn't take too long to turn on. I suppose we'll go for the sound difference first. So literally, if I start, I'm over here, this is me in a very light area, but if I go from here and I start going,
this is me in a nice dark area, okay? I've largened my vocal tract size, my resonance has gotten darker, this is that kind of a thing, okay? Or if we go,
Now I'm back in that more feminine area. It's a brighter sound. And our camera is going to be back in just a moment. Phone is starting. Okay. Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is a much easier way of explaining resonance. Let my camera catch up. Are we good, camera? Are we still struggling? Go on, phone, you got this. Okay, so it's lagging. Why is it lagging? Okay, hopefully it's not lagging too much. You'll get the idea. So I am muting the strings on a stringed instrument. These are responsible for pitch, okay? They wobble and that produces pitch. So I'm muting them by putting my fingers over them so that pitch doesn't come into the equation, okay? So all you're hearing is me tapping the body. Okay? Keep that sound in your brain, all right? Still got that sound in your brain? Compare it to this. Exact same sort of a thing, it's just bigger. Totally different sound, all right? The reasoning for that different sound, okay, they're the same shape. I've muted the strings on both. All you're hearing is one is bigger and one is smaller, okay? That difference in size is resonance, okay? That sound difference is the perceptual resonance, okay? So as we reduce size, a sound gets brighter. As we increase size, the sound gets darker. Ooh. There we go. Okay, the same thing happens in our voice. We've talked about the vocal tract a whole bunch of times. That vocal tract can get bigger and it can get smaller using a few different mechanisms. So, the Adam's apple, okay? I want you to look at my Adam's apple, all right? I'm gonna drop resonance, okay? I'm gonna enlarge my vocal tract.
And now I'm over here, okay? You can see my larynx is now over here, my Adam's apple. I can move it up again.
And now it's over here.
And it can move over here.
We can even do that same tapping thing with our vocal tract. Do you hear the difference in that sound? That's what we're going for, okay? That difference in the sound is what we're trying to do. Now, what's actually happening there? So, we talked about the larynx earlier. This is part of the larynx, that Adam's apple, and you're able to move it up and down, okay? And I'm going to prove it. So, firstly, let's just talk very briefly about what a whisper is, okay? Whisper is essentially your vocal folds aren't closing, okay? So we don't have pitch coming into it, because earlier we talked about the amount of times they close is pitch. Yes, we don't have any closure. There's no pitch. So the only way you can change the sound of a whisper is through a change in the resonance, okay? It has to get brighter, all right? So I want you sat at home right now. Imagine that you're a really big dog, okay? You're like a Labrador or like a Rottweiler or something. And I want you to pant like you're that really big dog, okay? Okay, we're panting like that big dog. Now, I want you to imagine you're a really small dog, okay? Like a Chihuahua or a Pomeranian or something. Okay? Now, from that pant, okay, that brighter kind of a sound, I want us to start to phonate, okay? That's when we have that vocal fold closure, we have pitch coming into the equation, that's phonating, that normal kind of talking, okay? 1, 2, heat from fire, fire from heat, okay? This is a brighter resonance. At the other end,
Oh, 1, 2. Heat from fire, fire from heat. Okay? This is a darker resonance.
Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? Big dog, little dog. That's going to be your gold exercise for resonance. This is probably going to produce the biggest change in your voice and the most gendered difference. So have a play with that right now. What do we think, in chat? Are we managing? Can we hear that difference in sound? Okay. So, for example, this sound
versus this sound.
Okay, it's a pretty dramatic change. Or this sound versus this sound. Okay, you might end up getting to an area kind of like this. That's okay. If you sound like this, you did it right. Okay? Because remember, that's just a vocal weight change. Okay? But our resonance change has still happened there. Yeah? Big dog, little dog. So useful. Okay? We can also just try a whispered vowel change. Okay? So we'll start with an A. Okay? Okay, you can hear that ah. Oh, also, can everybody hear me when I whisper and do big dog, little dogs? Like for pants. Just because Discord can mess with that sometimes. I believe I've changed all my settings. But just to double check, does everybody definitely hear that? Good, good. So yeah, the other thing we can try, all right, imagine that A sound, that ah. Okay, we're going to whisper that. We're going to start low and that darker resonance, and then we're going to start move upwards to that brighter resonance. Okay. Ashes to ashes. And then we're in this really, really bright kind of an area. Okay? Is it normal that vocal folds seem to open up a bit more when I raise your resonance? Noticed that just now and not sure if you're on the right path. So what I think you're asking is it normal for your vocal weight to reduce a little bit? And probably, yeah. A lot of these things are going to be a lot of these wires are going to be crossing your brains right now. Because normally when you hear someone in a brighter resonance, they're normally a cis woman, and so they normally have that reduced vocal weight as well. A lot of these things you're going to hear in patterns, they're probably also speaking in a slightly higher pitch. Okay? So you will hear those changes, but I want you to be able to detangle those and be able to modify these things one at a time. So I want you to be able to change your weight independent of your resonance, independent of your pitch. Okay? Because if you can tweak all of those, you can have whatever voice you want. Whether that's androgynous, masculine, feminine, you can do whatever you want. Okay? And that's like the perfect goal of voice modification. So remember, in terms of mechanism, we're moving our larynx up and down. That is stretching out or shrinking up the vocal tract, changing its size. So if you see the term vocal tract size being referred to, that's that whole resonance thing. If you hear obviously resonance, then that's this sort of a thing. If you hear laryngeal movement or raising the larynx, that's still talking about the same thing. Now, something I'm going to very quickly cover, okay, is a little bit of misinfo online, because this is a popular topic to talk about because it's one of the most dramatic changes, and because of that, there's a lot of really bad info out there. So, swallow and hold is a technique that was developed by speech-language therapists and speech-language pathologists way back, okay? The reasoning for the swallow and hold technique, some of you might have heard of it, is that moving of our larynx comes from our ability to swallow, okay? When you swallow, you raise the larynx and you drop it again. All right? If I swallow, you can see, here's my larynx.
Or if I go over here, so it's a bit more dramatic, here's my larynx, watch me swallow.
Okay? So because of that, speech professionals were like, oh, if you just swallow and then hold it at the top, then you've raised your larynx. The problem with that is you do so many other things as well when you swallow. There's a whole bunch of muscles that go into swallowing. You don't just raise your larynx. You close your epiglottis. You contract a bunch of the vocal tract. You swallow, you know? Swallowing has a whole bunch of movements baked into it. It's not just raising your larynx, all right? So if you see swallow and hold, ignore it. The person teaching you right now is way out of date and it's now considered to be a harmful practice. Those other things that go into a swallow that aren't just for raising the larynx, if we're doing them all the time, you're going to have a ton of constriction and you're going to have probably quite an uncomfortable experience when you're changing your resonance. If you were to talk like that all the time with all of those muscles getting involved, you're probably going to hurt yourself. Okay, so this isn't considered a good practice anymore. This is generally considered quite a bad, dangerous practice. All right? So if you hear swallow and hold, ignore that teacher. They are wrong. And any good professional will tell you that. Okay? Always want to make sure I'm covering that. Any questions about that? And does that make sense to everybody? Generally, with all of our voice stuff, if anybody tells you to focus on a part of your body, that's a red flag. I want you to focus on the sound. You're not changing part of your body. I imagine you don't have dysphoria about how much time your vocal folds spend closed. You don't even see or feel your vocal folds. What's causing the dysphoria, or what's causing you to just want to change your voice, is the sound of your voice. So if it's the sound we're trying to change, it's the sound you should be listening to. Okay? That's what's most important. So that's what I want you focused on. Does that make sense to everybody? And this tea is now room temperature. Make sense? All right. Let's move forward. So, last thing. If we are masculizing specifically, we can use our yawn voice again to help us change our resonance. If I just give a yawn again.
If I go over to here, you remember this is our dark resonance, okay? So that yawn voice is immediately going to open up the vocal tract. Think about a yawn, you're trying to exchange air, okay? Your yawn is going to open up the vocal tract, make it really nice and big, okay?
That's going to help you to darken your resonance even past the point of most cis males, okay? So you're going to get that idea of the extreme, and then as you get more comfortable with it and more familiar, you'll just scale it back a little bit. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. Also, if you're masculizing, we'll just throw this out there because it's a weird myth that goes around. You can masculize without taking testosterone. Just like you can feminize, you can also masculize, okay? Estrogen doesn't change the vocal tract at all. Testosterone does. So if you are on testosterone, your voice is going to change and it is going to masculize. But if you're wanting to do, one, more than what the medication is doing, or two, you're trying to do it without needing HRT, you can do it, okay? There's a myth that you can't, that you need testosterone. It's a complete myth. Again, if anybody ever says that, they don't know what they're talking about and they don't understand how voice modification works at a fundamental level. So you should probably just ignore everything they say because they're like way off. It doesn't even make sense. If you can feminize, then you can masculize. Okay, last little thing that you can see written down here. Oh, there's a few things we still need to talk about. So you can see those R1, R2, R3. R1 refers to the larynx. That's the first resonant chamber. R2 is your, your mouth, okay? Technically there's more of an out, but don't worry about it. R2 is your mouth, the second resonant chamber. R3 is your lips, the third resonant chamber, okay? We're focusing on R1. Technically, there's some stuff over sort of between R2 and R1, which is pharyngeal closure or pharyngeal opening. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. That's a bit more advanced, and usually you can get to where you want with just laryngeal movement, But if you find that you have maximally moved your larynx and you've managed to do all of that and you're still not quite satisfied, ask around about OPC, okay? Oral pharyngeal closure, or oral pharyngeal, I guess, opening it would be. Okay? But we're not going to cover that in this workshop. Okay, the last thing. This is not pitch. What we're doing right now is independent of pitch, okay? Listen to the sound of my voice as I change my resonance. You can hear that drone of a pitch staying the same throughout all of it. Now I'm going to change my pitch. We did that earlier with the softies, okay? That's a pitch change. Totally different sound, okay? So that's really important. People often get pitch and resonance confused. Make sure you're keeping a track of that. Am I changing my pitch or am I changing my resonance? Okay? Am I changing my pitch or am I changing my larynx height? Yeah? Okay. So, any questions so far? We've covered a lot of ground there. That is the bulk of voice modification. That weight change, that resonance change is like 80% of what you're going to be doing. All right? So we've just covered a lot of ground. Anybody got any questions? No questions, no way. Close that door in case doggy wants to come upstairs. My neck is so stiff. Not a voice training question, but where did you get the jacket from? It's really cute and I want one. I think my boyfriend found it in Sainsbury's and just brought it home. I kind of don't really know what to pair it with. I don't really know how to wear like a woolen item yet. I haven't really, and like with these sorts of colours. I don't really know where it goes with yet, but we're having a go with this right now. It's pretty cold over here in the UK, and this is nice and cozy and warm, so it's what we went with. Not my usual style, but I figured we'd have a little experiment, give it a go. We're on YouTube instead of Twitch, so we'll have a woolen jacket instead of, I don't know, whatever else, a normal jumper. Vouching for the UK being cold. Yeah, the UK is pretty cold right now. Winter is here, Jon Snow. You may have a question. Even if you try raising your resonance and changing size, your voice still retains a lot of very buzzy quality. Yes. That still gives it a bit of a strange sound, almost like a leftover of that masculine timbre. What could I do to make it softer? That buzzy quality, we talked about it just earlier, that's the vocal weight. So what you're probably describing is it kind of sounding like this, okay? So if I start off in my unmodified voice, this is what I sounded like before doing any voice modifications, okay? If I'm over here and I only change my resonance, okay, I'm going to start sounding something over kind of here, all right? This is me only changing my resonance without changing that buzzy quality, that vocal weight, okay? If I then start removing some of that weight and I start shedding it, I can end up over here, okay? So what you're needing to do there is just start shedding that vocal weight and you'll start hitting that feminine area, all right? Hope that helps. Helps tremendously? Great, I'm so glad. Fallen, gotta get water. Get yourself some water. Okay, we're going to move forward. So we're going to talk essentially about what you were just asking there. I can't shuffle something's blocking my chair. Okay, so vocal fullness. All right. Before we go into this in depth, keep in mind that this is it's not like a real thing. It's more like an analysis of a voice. Okay. It's going to vary a little bit from culture to culture. So this is a bit of a generality. All right. But for most cultures, this is going to apply in some manner. Okay. So we've just been over size. We've just been over weight. Okay. I want you to draw those as a graph. We have that on screen now. Okay. We have as our y-axis, we have a vocal tract size from small to large. That's our resonance. And then on our x-axis, we have that vocal weight. Very heavy versus very light. Okay. So that's our vocal weight or our quotient. Okay. So if our resonance is, what's the word I'm looking for? I've completely lost the word. Let me look at my PowerPoint. Did I have a word here? Yes, balance. There you go. If our vocal weight is in balance and it's proportional to our vocal size, our vocal tract size, then it's going to sound full, whether that's on the masculine end or on the feminine end. Okay? So right now, hopefully, my voice sounds full. But if I start moving away from that kind of in proportion thing, if I go over to that buzzy kind of an area, now we're going to be kind of over full. Okay? You probably don't know many people that talk in this kind of an area. All right? You might have heard cartoon characters kind of talk like this. So right now, this is kind of how SpongeBob talks a little bit. I don't have a great SpongeBob impression, but he has these qualities to his voice, okay? That very squeaky, that very buzzy, that very annoying kind of a thing. That's the SpongeBob thing. Or like a gnome kind of talk like this, or like some elves, depending on like which thing we're looking at. Like Santa's elves talk like this, okay? Whereas if I then go back to my feminine, and then I start dropping that resonance, okay,
I can kind of end up sounding over here. Again, you probably don't hear anybody actually talk like this ever, but you might hear some cartoon characters, okay? I'm smarter than the average bear. That's kind of like a Yogi Bear kind of a thing. Or if I kind of add a little bit of breathiness to it. Good golly, Christopher Robin. This is kind of like what Pooh Bear sounds like, okay?
Yeah, that's that kind of a hollow thing. If I was to
go over to the hollow and then start increasing that weight, then I'm going to start sounding more like a traditional masculine voice, okay? So we can be full with a masculine voice, or we can be full with a feminine voice, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so that fullness line, that's where things sound a bit more, quote unquote, normal, all right? Generally, you're going to prefer the sound of a full voice. Now, I've kind of described it as if it's a perfect through line. Not exactly. You have a lot of wiggle room there, okay? So, can you guys see my mouse? I think you can see my mouse, right? Yeah, you can see my mouse. Hopefully YouTube. Can YouTube see my mouse? For people that are on the YouTube, can they see my mouse? Yep, perfect. Okay, super useful. So, that line that we've drawn there, it's not a perfect, or well, it is a perfect line, but it's a thick line, okay? We can be kind of over here, and things are still going to sound relatively full, okay? Or we can move more towards hollow, more towards over full, without going far enough that things sound not full. Okay, does that make sense? So you've got a lot of wiggle room, but if things are just sounding weird, even though you know you have a bright resonance, even though you know you have a light weight, they're probably just out of proportion with one another. Okay, you need to change one of the two to move it to that full area. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions about fullness? Do you understand the concept?
if specifically you're in the linguistic server, they call overfull cursive trans voice, because it's very common for, especially for feminizing, for a trans voice to end up in this overfull area. I really like that term, but if you hear cursive trans voice, that's overfull. That literally is what that is. Yeah, Red saying that she was overfull for like 8 months. It's very, very common. For our trans femmes, if you've got a problem and you're struggling with it, you're probably overfull. That's what Martina earlier was saying as well, or was describing having that issue. Yes, this workshop is roughly the same each week, but there's opportunities for you to ask each time, like with different stuff. And I might say things in different ways each time, and so things that didn't click last time might click next time, because I might just say it in a different way. Yeah. All right, moving forward further. Okay, so if we've gotten all that way already, we've done it. All right. When do the twang show up? Right now. Yeah, we've essentially done all of our gendered stuff there. Okay, in terms of the sound of our voice itself. All right. So if we're managing to get that full femme voice, or our full masc voice, or our full androgynous voice, we're now at the stage where we can start choosing what kind of a femme voice do you want? What kind of a masc voice do you want? What kind of androgynous voice do you want? Okay, we can think about these other qualities that aren't really gendered, but still alter the sound of our voice. Okay? Now, one there that I'm going to talk about a little bit extra is pitch, okay? Because you might be thinking of pitch as a really gendered thing. And yeah, I've got it on my like non-gendered list. I call pitch gendered 0.5, okay? It's kind of a little bit gendered, but like not really. Essentially, on average, cis females will speak in a higher pitch, and on average, cis males will speak in a lower pitch. However, that's not the same as it being gendered, okay? If you have a cis female speaking in a lower pitch, in that more masculine area, they will never ever sound masc by doing that. They will just sound like a woman speaking in a lower pitch. The same for a masculine voice. They'll just sound like a man speaking in a higher pitched voice, okay? So if I kind of reduce my pitch and I go like really, really low, this is about as low as I can get right now, okay? My voice isn't sounding anything more masculine by doing this. Or if I go over here and I kind of go like really, really high pitched, and I'm like really, really high pitched, but my voice isn't sounding any more feminine, that's because like this isn't really going to change that, okay? We're just going to sound more and more high pitched, okay? So that's why I'm putting pitch in this sort of, it's a little gendered, but like not really. Okay. Okay, Fawn is asking, you think you are mixing size and twang too much? Because twang is closing the airways, right? Kinda, or making airways more narrow. And you think when you do the dog, big dog, little dog practice, you're trying to use twang to make the resonance higher unintentionally. That would sound bizarre to me, but we'll explore it. This is an inexhaustive list of customizable things you can do with your voice. There are tons of things here, and I'm not going to go through all of them today. And some of these you can have in a small amount, some you can have in a large amount. Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of this. Essentially, everything that isn't what we've talked about so far is on this list. So obviously this is a normal list. But here's just some common ones that people play with sometimes. So we've got vocal fry, which is a really popular one. If I start talking kind of like this is me talking with a lot more vocal fry, okay? This is like the most vocal fry, okay? I'm speaking with a ton of vocal fry right now. If you hear like Raven from Teen Titan, she speaks with constant vocal fry, okay? Most people don't use it all the time, but they might use it to like accent words every so often, okay? Or if you're really tired, you might start adding like bits of vocal weight every so often, okay? You'll hear in my speech every so often there'll be a little bit of vocal weight. I don't do it very commonly, although if this workshop happens to go until like way late, you know, in a couple of hours, I'll probably start having a lot more vocal fry, because usually when we're a bit more tired, we tend to have more vocal fry. Literally just for vocal folds are more relaxed, and so they're kind of flapping together like that instead of like that sharp movement. They're kind of like and they've slowed down a bit as well. So that is what vocal fry is. All right. Vocal fry will also, this is why I'm spending a bit more time on this, because there's a little hack that you can employ if you're specifically feminizing. Vocal fry allows you to get to lower pitches, okay? So one, if you're masculizing and you're struggling to get to a lower pitch and you want a lower pitch, try adding some vocal fry. You're going to have way more depth, okay? But also as a trans femme, that vocal fry will make it sound like you're like reaching down, okay? Because of that, we can kind of like, imagine this is our pitch floor. We can have like a false bottom over here. If I just add fry every time I'm over here, it's going to sound like this is actually my pitch floor when really it's down here, okay? So let's say every time I go down a little bit, I just add a little bit of vocal fry, and I only ever use that when I go down a little bit. It's going to sound like, oh, I'm trying to go so low with my voice. This is so difficult for me to go low in my voice, even though
I could go all the way over here.
You know what I mean? Like, we can just add that fry as a little pretend, okay? And it makes it sound like that's as far down as we can go, when really we could go so much lower, okay? This could also like apply to your resonance. It'll just generally sound like it's more difficult for you to go any lower, when actually it's really easy for you. Okay, so that's why I'll spend a little bit of time on vocal fry. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we'll go through some. Breathiness, if I kind of talk like this is breathiness. It's very simple. I'm just outputting more air, okay? Twang is, I'm not very good at twang, but essentially it's quite common in certain accents. If I kind of raise the tongue a bit, I can kind of talk, like a witch cackle is really good for this. So if I go like, if I kind of talk like this is me adding a whole bunch of twang, okay? That literally, the reason it's called twang is because the end of twang has twang, okay? Twang, okay? Now I'm talking like that kind of extra like boost to that volume is what comes from twang, okay? I hope that makes sense. I don't use any twang in my voice, like ever, apart from when a word makes you do twang. So I'm pretty bad at it. But if you Google it, if you look up on YouTube, you'll be able to hear like much clearer examples of twang. Wait, what's a twang example? Me kind of talking like this. This is twang, okay? Again, I'm not very good at it. If you go on to YouTube, you'll get much better examples than that. But you should get a decent volume boost after twang. And you might get a slightly brighter sound out of it as well. But don't be using twang to do that. A really good way, if you really just want to know, am I raising my larynx? Just go. Does that sound brighter than? If yes, you raised your larynx. But yeah, I suck at twang, so that's like an okay-ish example. You're better off looking on YouTube for that one. You haven't heard of nurdle. Okay, so nurdle is if I kind of, you know, like Stitch, okay, from Lilo and Stitch. Stitch talk, blah blah blah. Stitch at the end of Lilo and Stitch talks in nurdle. He doesn't at the beginning because he barely can talk. He can okay, but at the end of the movie, Ohana means family. Okay, he kind of talks like this. If I kind of talk like lower down with this, I'm not very good at the Kermit voice, but Kermit kind of talks like this with a bit more nodal. The only actual like person I know that talks with nodal is Jordan Peterson. But that sort of Kermit Frog kind of a thing that's going on in Jordan Peterson or in Kermit Frog himself. It's very in Miss Piggy as well. That's Nerdle or Nodal. Technically, it should be, if that O has like 2 dots on it, that's how you're supposed to spell it. This is how you spell it if you're lazy. Yeah, that's Nodal. I guess we may as well do nasality because we've been through all yours. If I can't talk, that's horrible. Why can't I do Nodal nasality right now? That kind of village thing. No, I'm just ending with Nerdle.
If I couldn't talk like this is me kind of having...
No, I'm doing a horrible job. You know what? Just Google nasality. You got hyponasality, which is where no air is coming out of your nose, even where it should be, and hypernasality, when you get an excessive amount of nasality. I'm struggling to do it right now. Look it up on YouTube, you'll find it. Again, these are things that I don't mess around with that much because I don't use them in my voice. I should probably practice some more for these workshops, but there you go. You can hear the clicks in my elbows. Oh, it's also food item in Germany. Well, it's literally the exact same spelling for this voice thing. Bizarre. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? You can look any of these things up on YouTube and you'll get brilliant examples. The most popular one is probably going to be vocal fravo and obviously pitch. You can have those for dinner, and then when I say it's not relevant, then it's going to be wrong. All right, moving forward then. This is going to be our last thing in the workshop, and then we'll move over to our open forum bit. So if you're wanting to ask questions and have me look at your voice, then sit tight. We'll be doing that very soon. Okay, this is the last thing. You've got the type of voice that you want, but you're struggling to use it in a feminine or masculine way. So there is kind of, now all of what I'm about to say, I want you to take with a very heavy grain of salt, because there's a ton of variation of this. There's a ton of regional variation in this. So it might apply to my country and not yours. I'm going to say some very general rules that apply to most areas, but listen to the people around you to really clue into this more. Yeah, this is super, super subjective, and super location variant and super just everything variant. It's a very cultural thing, okay? So yeah, we're talking cultural norms now. We're not talking like anything real. It's all cultural, but whatever. Okay, so generally speaking, everything here is generalities. Generally speaking, a more feminine voice is going to have a bit more sharpness to it than a more masculine voice, which will sound a bit muddier. Okay? I want you to imagine a hi-hat. Open is masculine, close is feminine. So if I have a t, 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 that's our closed. If I have a ch, 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 that's our open. Okay? T, 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 t. Okay? It's a subtle difference, but one's a lot muddier than the other one is. Okay? So if I say a word like quiet versus quiet, that's going to be our difference, okay? Okay? What's happening is my tongue is moving back and moving forward. All right? The muddy one, it's further back. The sharp one, it's further forward. Does that make sense? All right. Next, we have our vowel elongation. Okay. So if I'm speaking and my vowels are more stretched out and there's more focus on the vowels in the words versus the consonants, that's going to be a more feminine speech pattern. So for example, when I'm talking right now, you can hear that I'm staying on those vowels for a bit longer. Whereas if I'm talking right now, I'm not really staying on any of those vowels. You can hear whenever you hear a moment in the word, you're hearing a consonant, okay? Consonant consonant. Okay, that's the difference. All right. We're going to put all of these together at the end and you'll hear a much clearer example. All right. The other thing is pitch movement. Generally, a more feminine voice is going to have more pitch movement, whereas a more masculine voice is generally going to be a bit more monotonous. It's not going to be monotonous and sounding like a robot, but it's going to be more monotonous. Okay. And with those pitch movements, there's generally going to be more of a flow in a feminine speech pattern, whereas it's going to like cut and jump up and down for a more masculine pattern. A really nice hack to get this in, okay, is if we just draw circles as we're doing our sentences, I can kind of go all the way up here and then come down here. And this is a more feminine speech pattern where we're just drawing circles with our pitch, okay? And we can just do this over and over again. And we can do a larger circle where we really go over here, and then we can come down again. And that's going to add a little bit more emphasis on an area that we're talking, okay? But there's just constant circles as we're going through our sentences, if you want something to visualize it with, okay? All right, a way to bring all of this together so you don't have to think about any of it, and it's all going to click into place. Very useful, okay? Firstly, when we're looking at very precise things like this, where it's like almost overloading the brain with how much we're thinking about there, it's going to be easier for us if we can just do like a type of voice that has these things going on with it. Then all we have to think about is that type of voice. We don't have to think about all these individual elements. All right. So to cover all of the articulation stuff all in one go, for a feminine voice, I want you to imagine that you are a kindergarten or nursery teacher, okay? And you're talking to the little kids, okay? They're like 3, 4, 5, you know, that sort of an age. And you're telling them a fairy tale, okay? A fairy story. Once upon a time, in a mystical land far away, you can hear that my vowels are very elongated. It's very gentle, so it will help you with your vocal weight a little bit. And also my pitch is moving quite a lot, all right? It's moving up and it's moving down, okay? It's very flowy from one word to the other. It's very clear. It's very sharp and clear. You can hear each individual element to a word. It's very nicely pronounced. This is a more feminine speech pattern. This is obviously in its most extreme form, but we can then sort of bring that back into a normal speech pattern, kind of mainly just by bringing up the speed a little bit and making things a little bit less extreme, for an easy way to plug into a feminine speech pattern. For a masculine speech pattern,
I want you to imagine that you are President Obama and you're giving a speech to the public, okay? And this is me giving my speech about the economy and the this and the that. And you can hear that my pitch is kind of moving in jumps and steps, okay? Sometimes I'm going to be over here and then sometimes I'm going to be over here, okay? Bing, bang, bong. This is me talking kind of like President Obama when he's giving a presidential speech, okay?
That's that kind of a thing, all right? A lot less soothing and it's much more in your face, bringing your attention to something. That's generally going to be a more masculine pattern, all right? I hope that makes sense. Zari said like 2 lines of a fairy tale in your soothing voice and now you're sleepy. Well, I'm so sad for making you sleepy. I'm so sorry. Not long now, okay? All right. Does anybody have any questions about articulation? That can be a lot to think about. For most people, I find most people tend to they don't even have to think about this. It will happen as they feminize or masculinize their voice. They will just kind of move in this direction because they're used to hearing, and when they think a feminine voice, they're already thinking these things and they'll just kind of do it already. But some people don't. I was one of the people that didn't and had to do it manually, and this is how I did it. Yeah. Any questions about speech pattern stuff or articulation? Was articulation the main one that you had to learn manually? I kind of learned everything manually, really. None of this came naturally to me. Maybe because, like, I don't know, voice things have never really came naturally to me. I had to really learn them manually. Vocal weight came pretty naturally to me. I found that as soon as I'd approach vocal weight, I was like, oh, I already know how to do that. And I just did it. I didn't really have to learn vocal weight. I already knew it. Everything else, though, I had to learn from scratch, including like the minutiae, like articulation. So yeah, and if I can do it, you can definitely do it, because I'm terrible at all of this sort of thing. And yeah, I'm producing, hopefully, a relatively feminine voice. At least it's one that I'm happy with. So, yeah. You're also happy with my voice. Thank you. So, okay. If there's no more questions in articulation, let's move over to our open forum section. Oh, something I have totally forgotten to... this chat thing isn't going to be working because I haven't changed the chat. I don't think I can change this in time. I wonder, can I just throw the chat box in? If I go for like a window capture, does this count as a separate window? I doubt it does, but we'll have a look. No, I can't use that. Why did I dox myself? Wait, what? Whoa, 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 whoa. I haven't doxed myself, right? Not me. Okay. Whew. Okay, I'm not going to be able to show you guys chat. I'm so sorry. YouTube chat, I am looking at you, but you're not on screen. But I am looking at you. Okay? Speaking of, okay? This is our first ever stream on YouTube rather than Twitch. Like I said earlier, I'm just not very happy with Twitch's current moderation stances, mainly on like the anti-Semitism stuff. They're going kind of hard there, and I don't understand why. It's very weird. I'm not all about that. So we're moving over to YouTube, which, yeah, should be good. But obviously the stream is a little bit messy right now because I'm still in the process of doing that. Yeah, you making me panic. Absolutely. But yeah, hopefully next time we'll be doing better with that. And I remember chat is one of the things I need to fix. Also, you can see above me is the Twitch, the YouTube, and the Discord. The main place to find all of our stuff, the main like hub for Trans Network, is the Discord, directly above me. So yeah, that's the best place to go. But we're also trying to grow the YouTube up so that it's kind of where our Twitch was. So if you want to help me with my ego, subscribe to the YouTube. There will also be some separate content eventually coming to there. It's going to take me a long time to get around to that, but eventually I'll get that done. So yeah, eventually one day we will have stuff going on there. But other than that, we have the VOD from this will be on permanently. So if you ever just need to go back over some of this, either come back next week, Saturday 7 p.m. GMT, or just go over to the VOD. In my Discord, you can get free private lessons. We're getting pretty close to full there, so first come, first serve. But there's still a couple of spaces. So yeah, if you're wanting them, then you can get free private lessons there with me. The reason my private lessons are free is because, as I said earlier, I'm not a professional vocal coach. I'm still building experience. So you're paying me by giving me that experience, okay? I don't feel comfortable charging for something when I'm not at that standard yet. So yeah, that's what we do instead. But yeah, so main community hub, you can hang out with me You can hang out with all the rest of my community over in the Discord. If you want to make me feel better about my life choices, then subscribe to the YouTube and totally ignore the Twitch. Maybe we'll come back to that if they ever deal with weird anti-Semitism stuff over there. But yeah, okay, so if anybody has any questions about anything relating to trans voice, then do let me know in any of your respective Discords and chats. Or if anybody wants me to work with them specifically right now, then let me know. Laura, that's a little secret surprise if they join. Yeah, if you ever just want to feel good about yourself, then my Discord is relentless about complimenting people. So
I don't think that's a bad thing, no.
no, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Also, the word you're looking for, it's knödel.
Hmm?
You pronounce it knödel in the...
Knödel. Knödel. I'm not German, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, just FYI.
Knödel. I will try to get good with that pronunciation.
Yeah.
And it's like an kind of a sound. It's like knödel or something.
Knödel.
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 Mm-hmm. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Or does anybody want me to work with them specifically for a moment and have a bit of one-on-one attention?
If you want to know what you sound like, just talk.
Yeah, Fallen, we can go over your voice if you wanted to. You're in our server, Fallen, so you can absolutely at any point submit clips or do any of that.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I was playing a game earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm still sleepy.
And how are we feeling about our voice?
Alright, but I don't know what it sounds like.
So I think you've got a reasonably bright voice. I think you could get a bit brighter if you wanted to, but we're reasonably bright. And I think we've got quite a low weight. I think weight you've got down. I think if you wanted to, you could go a little bit brighter. That's up to you at this point.
Bright is resonance?
Yeah, resonance. Yeah, resonance. I think you're I think you're within that feminine range now. Maybe androgynous to feminine, but we're definitely closer to feminine.
Nice.
And like I think at this point it's going to be like some people might see it as feminine, some people might see it as closer to androgynous, but we're definitely within that kind of an area. Yeah, if you wanted to be a bit brighter, you could be. That's up to you. And your pitch sounds totally fine. You're moving pitch pretty easily to the sound, to what it sounds like to me. I'm not hearing any strain or anything like that. So, yeah. Doing pretty good, I'd say.
Like my what's it? Resonance is like highest. Like when I do the dog, I don't know if the twang is like
It's-
affecting the pitch.
I'm not hearing any twang in your voice, so I don't think twang's affecting you. Don't worry.
Cause like when I do the dog, I go like. But I'm worried because like sometimes I go like.
Oh, what's probably happening there is you're kind of are we kind of like almost smiling when we do that
Yeah.
versus like that's all that is. So do you remember earlier when I was talking about resonance, we had our R3, our lip space? That's what that does, okay? So when we're smiling, you can hear I've kind of got like a really smiley thing going on in my voice, all right? That's literally because of me smiling. That change in size between my lips is changing the sound of a voice, okay? So you want to be able to aim for a bright voice without needing to smile all the time. Mainly just because in normal life we don't smile all the time. You know, if you're at like a funeral or something, you probably don't want to be like, oh, I know, it's so sad how that person just died with that big beaming smile on my face, you know? It's just not always appropriate for the environment you're in. So I would aim for, try to be able to modify your voice and modify your resonance without having to play with your lips, okay? Let your lips just do whatever your lips are going to do. Okay?
Okay.
No worries. So I think that's what's going on there. Also, just something else I heard in your Big Dog, Little Dog. You don't need like a super loud pant there. So long as it's audible, then it's fine. Like a rather than like a yeah. Do you hear the difference? Yeah, that sounds all right. Yeah, go for like a reasonably quiet pant, as long as you can hear it. Mainly just so we can avoid any strain coming in. I don't think you have any strain coming in. I'm not hearing it in your voice, but it's worth throwing out there. Androgynous phoneme is what you're shooting for, so you're perfect then. You're doing everything you're trying to do there. Yeah, that's literally exactly what I'm hearing, so that's perfect. Yeah, maybe next week, that's totally fine. AC plus. I will also, when we get through everybody that wants attention while we're streaming, I will stick around for a little bit. So if anybody wants something but they just really don't feel comfortable being on stream, that's totally fine. I'll stick around for a little bit. So yeah. Or you can join the Discord and I can give you attention essentially all hours of the day, unless I'm like working, and then I'll go like later. Yeah, Emmy, you want to give it a go? Go for it.
What is catching?
Oh, it's a cable. I can't fix that right now. Yeah, do we have a question there? Or do we want me to work on something?
Yeah. To be completely honest, I haven't really practiced much since last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been doing a little bit on my own, you know, with the voice notes, just sort of recording and listening back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the thing is sometimes it sounds really good, and then sometimes it just sounds super weird.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still working on like getting it consistently, but I think it's a net improvement.
Yeah, I'm hearing a really feminine voice. You sound really, really good. I think you're maybe a little bit static, maybe, but that's probably just because you're getting used to this. I think literally, if you just practiced doing this and just got used to this and felt comfortable, that's it. You're basically done. So I think you've nailed it. You did it. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we talked about that last time as well.
Okay, yeah.
I think I mentioned, my natural voice is like super monotone, so I'm still working on
Oh, okay.
just a lot of the tone in general.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's not really a feminization thing, but one thing I do a lot is, especially if I'm not sure what to say, I just sort of stop talking in the middle of a sentence.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I think that might sound kind of weird, but
That's maybe just nerves and stuff. That's not too... At least that's not going to affect the gendering. So, yeah, I think focus on those circles and that'll help you. And then something you might find... you listen, don't worry. Something you might find, and I can hear you speak quite quickly, you might find that slowing that down a bit helps you to think more. Just because being a bit slower, you've got more time to think about what you're doing with your pitch and stuff. I don't want to say like, oh, you're going too fast. Don't go too fast. Like if this is your speaking style, then that's totally fine. But if you're struggling to like think about pitch and stuff, then maybe even if it's just in your practice, slow things down so you can hear and you can think and you can go over stuff. And then if you want to bring that speed back again, you can do.
yeah, that's a good idea. I always, like, every couple days I, like, try to get used to doing that, and then, like, 2 seconds in, I just forget immediately.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair
like,
enough.
That's what I was doing before, so...
I think
yeah,
if
maybe
you...
I would set a reminder.
Sorry, what was that last bit?
I said, like, if I put, like, a reminder, and, like, I keep looking at it while I'm talking, then maybe I won't forget about that immediately.
Try the reading a fairy tale thing that we talked about earlier. Try that. That might help you, because if you're reading out to little kids, you're probably going to really slow your pace down. Okay, because obviously you want them to hear and understand everything. Because obviously they're little, so they're not necessarily going to grasp everything super easily. So you're slowing it down. You're making it really easy for them to comprehend, or like this is what you're thinking in your mind. Okay, so try that. Reading a fairy tale out, imagining it's to like an audience of like kindergarten children, and you're trying to keep them really engaged. That'll hopefully help you to slow things down and to just think about things more. And hopefully it will help you just switch to that pattern, because all of those things are going to be incorporated in that reading a fairy tale out kind of a voice.
Yeah, I think I'll try that.
Yeah,
I think
good.
one thing that makes it harder for me especially is that especially when I talk in like a higher pitch.
Mhm.
I think the longer I spend on vowels, the more my voice ends up breaking.
Oh,
Um,
sure. What's probably happening
so
there?
it's-
What's probably happening there is you've probably got some tension going on. So try firstly just make sure your weight's in a nice and light area. Sounds like it is at the moment, but because that can mess with things a little bit. But also your main thing is probably going to be tension. Okay. When we have a punch, often we think about we're trying to go for a higher pitch, and so that's like effortful because we're kind of like pushing up there. You shouldn't be pushing up. You should just be kind of moving up. When we're pushing, we're adding a lot of tension and a lot of constriction, and we're making it harder for ourselves to go to a higher pitch. It's this like weird kind of irony thing, I guess, where our brains think, oh, effort to go for that place that isn't what we normally do, but adding effort makes it more difficult. You want to kind of do it like lazily almost. A nice way to train this is using sort of relaxed behaviors for doing our pitch movements. So if you think of like a sigh, when we sigh, we're kind of like, nice and relaxed now. That sigh, we move from a high pitch to a lower pitch. You'll probably find that you can access a much higher pitch than you normally can by doing that sigh, and you're going to be fully relaxed. So use that to train that behavior of being nice and relaxed as you're doing stuff. Straw affinations can also be really, really, really good for helping us build that behavior. So we've just got to think, you don't have to be all the way up where I am for starting that, but higher than you normally are, and just use that to practice. And then maybe you can do it in reverse. Nice and relaxed. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. So have a play with that and see if you can use that to access those higher pitches. All right?
All right, thank you.
Fab. All right. Anybody else? Would anybody else like some work on their voice?
Yeah, I would definitely appreciate some work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I mentioned, kind of struggling with the weight and such, and I would like to know if there's anything, inherently else wrong with my voice.
Yeah, so you're running into a really common problem. So we mentioned vocal weight earlier. Everybody remember what vocal weight is like, okay? We kind of got this kind of a sound, and then we got this kind of a sound, all right?
Or we got this kind of a sound, or we have this kind of a sound.
Okay? Now, what Martina here is doing is instead of reducing her vocal weight, she's added breathiness, okay? So she's kind of sounding kind of like this, okay? Where it's got that really nice resonance. The resonance is perfect, but we've still got that buzziness, and we've got a bunch of air coming out, okay? So what I want you to do is scale back that air coming out, because we're doing breathiness instead of doing weight, okay? So first off, scale back that airflow. See where that puts you.
Is this better?
This is
a bit better.
already way better, yeah. Keep going. I'll give you some little lines to play with. Do, 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 do. Okay, we're just going to go over one line, all right? There you go. Add the sum to the product of these three. Okay, so I want you to scale back that breathiness and instead go for that lightness. That okay.
Add the sum to the product of these three.
Add the sum to the product of these three. Scale back that breathiness. Literally less air coming out.
So, add the sum to the product of these three.
We've still got a ton of breathiness and a ton of turbulence. Really scale back the amount of air coming out.
Add the sum to the product of these three.
Better, way, way better.
Yeah.
Again?
Add the sum to the product of these three.
Yes, much, much better, okay? Play with that. And let's go breathy again, okay? Now go breathy again so you can feel what that is like when it's different.
Add the sum to the product of these three.
Yes, perfect, perfect, okay? Have a play with that. Have an explore of breathiness. See how little breath you can use while talking and try to go like as far as possible. And then play around with lots of breathiness and little breathiness and find a comfortable area, okay?
Right. Thanks a lot.
All right, good. You're very welcome. Anybody else want some help?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was anything wrong with my voice. I don't know what exactly might be wrong with it. All I know is that it just doesn't exactly sound right, if that makes sense.
Sure. Are we trying to masculize or feminize?
Feminize, please.
Feminize. Okay. So what I'm hearing in your voice, could you go back to add the sum to the product of these three, just so I can have another listen?
Add the sum to the product of these three.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing reasonably light and reasonably bright, but I think you could go further. I think you're sort of on that male androgynous kind of area. I think if you brightened a bit more, then we could end up really hitting that higher, that brighter resonance, that more feminine area. This is also quite a common thing where if resonance change is new to you, you're probably not going to go that far with it, but keep practicing it and you're probably going to brighten more and more and more. So let's go with that big dog, little dog again, and let's see what we can get you doing. All right? So big dog. Perfect. Little dog.
Oh yeah, I remember this being a problem like
Oh,
a
okay.
couple of weeks ago with my microphone having
Oh.
automatic voice suppression.
So first thing to check, in your Discord, next to the disconnect button, in between disconnect and video connected,
Yeah, the noise suppression.
noise
is off
suppression, it's off,
on
okay?
Discord. Yeah.
And then in your user settings, in voice and video, if you scroll down, input sensitivity, is that all the way to the left?
Input sensitivity. If I scroll down,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's on automatically determined.
Okay, so turn off automatic, so that it's on manual, and slide it all the way to the left.
Okay, is this better?
Okay, now give me a little dog. Perfect, now I can hear you, okay?
All right, gotcha.
So, again, big dog, little dog. Okay, now from there, okay, firstly, let's scale back the volume of that pant a little bit, just so we don't end up with any like turbulence or constriction. Yeah, perfect. All right, now we're going to do something called bridging, which is where we go from there into kind of a fry, into kind of phonation, okay? That'll sound like this. Ashes to ashes. So we're going to very slowly into normal speech, okay?
Ashes to ashes.
Okay, so what you did was ashes to ashes. Did you hear that drop in my resonance there?
Oh, I think so.
So listen again. Listen to the resonance of his voice. Ashes to ashes. Did you hear that drop? What I want is ashes to ashes.
Ashes to ashes.
Better, okay? Play with that. You're just having a resonant drop as you go from the whisper into phonation, okay? On that vocal onset, you're having a drop in your resonance. This is very, 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 very common. Most people will have this when they're first doing it. Just keep practicing. Listen for that drop, okay? So when you go into that brighter area, listen to make sure you're in the right spot, and then bring our vocal onset and make sure we don't drop in our resonance, okay? If we do drop, bring it straight back up again and teach ourselves to be speaking in that brighter resonance, okay? So once more from you.
Alright. What'd you say?
Once more, go again.
Alright, ashes to ashes.
Ashes to ashes. Yeah, that was pretty good, okay? So keep playing with that until you don't have that vocal drop, okay? That one was perfect, all right? Keep playing with it.
Alright, thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Once you get a good hang of that, by the way, you can start, because obviously right now we're very robotic. Ashes to ashes is very robotic. Once you've gotten that vocal onset issue sorted, start just normalizing that, have some pitch movement, and just kind of talk normal, but with that brighter resonance, okay? All right.
Gotcha.
Very good. Anybody else want some help with anything?
Yes, I don't know if my voice right now is a good starting point.
Are we trying to masculize or feminize?
Feminist.
Feminize. So I'm already hearing a really nice bright resonance. I'm hearing a lighter weight, but we do still have a bit of weight there. I think part of that is your accent. Am I hearing a more Hispanic accent?
Yes.
Yeah. Generally, I find, at least to my ear, a more Hispanic accent often will have a heavier vocal weight as well. So I'm not too worried in your case. To me, this sounds pretty feminine. This sounds like my aunt, because she's Spanish. If you wanted to, you could play with a lighter weight. But at this point, I think it's up to you. How does it sound to you, though? Do you hear the brighter resonance? Do you hear where the weight is at? Because what's most important is for you to be able to hear it.
Yes, I cannot recognize them. So
Oh, you can't recognize them, or you can?
I can't.
Okay.
Because I'm really new to all of this, so.
Okay, I'm very surprised at how you managed to get to where you are without knowing what you're doing. That's incredible.
My speech therapist, so.
That's incredible. Well, okay, so if I was to drop my resonance, okay, if I kind of ended up
Over here, can you do something like this, where you're in that lower kind of an area?
Could you repeat, please?
So if I kind of talk like this, it's kind of like Patrick Star or Yogi Bear, okay? If it sounds kind of hollow, can you talk like this?
Of course, we go on.
Yeah. So that change there that you just did was a resonance change. That is for resonance. So when you're talking back up here, this is your bright resonance, okay?
Okay.
And if you were to kind of talk like this and go really buzzy, can you do that? Can you talk really buzzy like this?
No, I don't think I can.
Okay. So let's go back over into our darker area, okay? If we're kind of talking like this, can you try the difference between this, which is my unmodified,
versus the difference between this, okay? Can we go from here
over to here?
Do you mean like going from this to the to?
Okay, it's okay. Don't worry. Let's go through the exercise specifically for this. I want you to imagine, and we're only really doing this, I think you've managed to get a feminine voice. So, kind of, you're already doing it. I'm kind of like, well, if you'd like to know how you're doing it, then you can know how you're doing it. This isn't that important though, because you're already doing it. So first of all, do you actually, is this something you want to know, or do you not care? Or because you're sounding pretty feminine.
I just try to improve.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's get some knowledge going. The people in my Discord are going crazy finding out that I'm half Spanish. So I want you to imagine, all right, I'll go over into my unmodified. I want you to imagine that you'll have a little baby in your arms, okay? It's a really cute little baby, okay? And I want you to kind of coo at that baby. Aww. 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 Very, very nice. Very cute baby, okay? Now I want you to imagine that that baby's just been sick on you. Gross, baby. Yeah, perfect. That's absolutely perfect, okay? Excuse me. The difference we're going for is that versus is a very light. Is a very heavy. Can you hear like the buzziness and the roughness to that
I mean, of course, I did it right.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And now the other end, can you hear that gentle very, very gentle kind of
And we can be over here and it could be sounding really dark, but it still sounds really gentle, okay?
Yeah, that's vocal weight, all right?
Okay.
So it seems like you've stumbled upon how to do these on your own, but now you know what it is that you're doing, Okay?
Yeah.
But well done for doing this on your own. That's pretty amazing. I don't think I've ever heard of somebody just doing it without even thinking about it. So well done you. All right. Do you feel like you've understood those and you feel like you understand what weight and resonance are now? Just to check.
I don't really, but I think
Yeah, fair enough.
I got a grasp of the concept.
Have a practice of, if you want to explore these further and you want to be able to play with your voice more, just play with it. So like play with that weight exercise and go back and forth and see if you can build an understanding of what this kind of thing is.
Versus this kind of a thing.
Okay? Try to move back and forward. You should also be able to do that in your more feminine area. You should be able to go from here over to here in that more buzzy kind of an area. Okay? Play with those. All right? Have a really good explore of vocal weight. All right? And once you feel like you've got that down, move over to your size. Although it sounds like size is probably pretty intuitive to you.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. Okay, yes, I have a Spanish aunt. Yes, my mum is Spanish. You feel like you're getting further away from your ideal voice right now. Hopefully your voice stays intact for a few days so that you can at least get to a reasonable level again before your next lesson with me. Yeah, just get better soon, Laura. So Laura's in a situation right now where she's a bit ill, and so she's having to just take a break from voice work. This is entirely fine, and it is what you should be doing if you're trying to keep things in a good and safe environment. If you're sick, take some time off. You're not helping things by hurting yourself and pushing to do things while you're sick. It's just, you're just going to make it longer before you can do proper practice. So, yeah. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions or want some extra help with their voice before we finish up? Nobody. Okay, well, we'll finish the stream here then. So, follow or subscribe to the YouTube if you want more content like this. Go to the Discord if you definitely want more content like this. The Discord is the #1 place. We hang out together there. I do private free lessons there. So if you just straight up want private coaching, it's totally free. You can do that. Like I say, that's first come, first serve. So I will just go through people, and once it's fully booked, it's fully booked. But keep in mind that as soon as I finish with one person, that's a new slot that's just opened up. So yeah, you will eventually get your free lessons. Don't worry. Anything else I should be mentioning? Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. My name is Zara. We are Trans Network. So thank you for coming. Again, I am not in association with the Trans Voice subreddit or with the Trans Voice Discord. I'm just able to host that, and so I do. Same thing for Trans Academy. I'm not in any association with them, but they let me use their Discord, so I do. You cannot find the YouTube channel. youtube.com/@transnetwork-12. It should be there, just above me. A little box. I know it's a little bit difficult to read, but there you go. Laura has just linked it. That is the stream right now. Cool. Okay. All right. We're going to finish off a workshop. Everybody say goodbye to YouTube. Bye-bye, YouTube. We love you. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Goodbye.